You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad you're here with us. We're going to have a great morning this morning. Despite the weather, myself feeling a little bit melancholy. I don't know if it is to do exactly with the weather all by itself or it's a combination of things. But it's Monday. I guess there's Monday, there's the weather, and a few other things. It's interesting, right? So how weather can affect us and how the day of the week can affect us. But I'm choosing to just have a good day regardless. Be in the present moment, as one of my good friends says, and is an advocate for world peace, going out there and spreading the love and spreading the joy. Hopefully one day I'll be able to have Kyan on the show and interview him. I was watching some old, just happened to be on his Facebook page yesterday, and as I have to connect back with him again. I was good friends with his father, who had passed away just before the pandemic. And so I'm going to have to connect with him again. And he just has such a positive message, goes around and helps everybody, brings everybody, a positive message. And he's a very unique person, and hope he stays that way. So if you're listening or you're watching, Kyan, good morning, and just thanks for being you. And so, we're going to have a good day regardless. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM, CKLU.ca. We're streaming there. You can click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can download the same Radio Player Canada app. You can take us with you. Listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. We're also streaming at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow, all that stuff. And comment, because we'll do our best to get the comments read for those listening on the radio and up on the screen for those who are watching. And if you comment, you're able to carry on the conversation. This is a facilitated community conversation on your community radio station and live streaming. So we're doing our best to discuss the issues, things that affect us, the news headlines. That's where we get them from. Our local journalists go out and do a really great job and cover local stories. We then discuss them on this show, Sudbury News and Views. And it's an opportunity to have your say, I guess you can say. And we have from time to time people that are in, the elected officials who make decisions, and they're influencers, and if they're part of the conversation as well, a lot of times we feel disconnected with those that we elect, and they're making decisions that we don't necessarily maybe feel we agree with, and people are getting further and further away from feeling part of decision making in our communities. Well, this is an opportunity to actually get those opinions out there and possibly affect the way things are done. And I know you feel like even if your opinion, is only one opinion out of millions or whatever, but really every opinion counts. I remember a little story about a little boy on the beach, and he was found throwing starfish into the ocean or whatever, and there were literally thousands, tens of thousands of starfish washed up on the beach. And someone said, so what are you doing? He goes, I'm helping the starfish. They're stranded here on the beach. He goes, well, there's millions of starfish. What do you think do you think you're actually going to make a difference? And as he's throwing the starfish in, he goes, well, it made a difference to this one. Made a good point there, right? And so I always remember that little story, and makes made a difference to me, even that story. And if we can make a difference in one person's life, it's totally worth it. And with that, we have just people joining on already. And I just want to give a shout out. Manik, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us on this Monday. Judy, good morning as well. Hope you're having a good Monday. And Belinda, speaking of positive sayings, good morning. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Oh, really appreciate that. Goes along with my little story this morning as well. So good morning, Belinda. So hope you're having a great morning. Monique as well. Good rising. Good rising for sure. Shirley, good morning. Our opinion doesn't matter. Only what God says is important. That is true. That is true. I think we're both saying the same thing there. I guess if your opinion doesn't align with the positive forces of God's will, I guess you could say, and then you want to express that, it could then make a difference. Kind of like God may want that starfish to survive, and through that particular boy at that particular time, he was able to do something good for that one, right? So our opinions, they come and go, and I definitely agree with you on that. As a believer in God myself, for sure. Watching the blossoms in the garden. Good morning, everyone. Yeah. The rain is great for our garden. So there is a positive side to the doom and gloominess, the way it looks outside, to me anyways, on this rainy Monday. And with that, let's just dive right in today with our weather. And we'll be back if some more people jump on and they want to say good morning. I'll also get you on after the weather. So we'll be back right after this. Okay, and Sudbury Weather brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca for all things Sudbury weather. You visit our Sudbury.news Facebook page and you can catch it there. But if you just type in SudburyWeather.ca, it'll land right on our website, Sudbury.news. Currently, it's 15 degrees Celsius, light rain shower. Well, it seemed not so light a few seconds ago where I am, but I guess it's kind of in and out, heavy light. Today, mainly cloudy, 40% chance of showers this morning with a risk of thunderstorm. Wind becoming southwest, 20 kilometers, gusting to 40. High of 22, UV index will be 6 or high. Tonight, mainly cloudy, 30% chance of showers this evening with a risk of thunderstorm. Wind will be the same. And an evening low of 11. Tuesday, mix of sun and cloud, 40% chance of showers late in the afternoon with a risk of thunderstorm, high of 22, UV index 7 or high. And a look at our long range. Tuesday, like I said, 40% chance of showers, 22. Wednesday, sunny. So we'll have a little break in the rain, apparently, not tomorrow, but on Wednesday, high of 25, sunny. According to the forecast, you know how that goes. It's not exact science. It's not a for sure thing, but anyways. Thursday, chance of showers, 23, 60% chance of showers, by the way. 60% chance of showers also on Friday, high of 22, and 30% on Saturday and Sunday, chance of showers, 24 and 25 respectively. Look at your satellite here. That was yesterday, but I'm sure it looks very similar today. That's your Sudbury Weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with a little bit of sports and news, but we'll put the sports right into the news headlines today and breaking those down when we come back right after this. Okay, welcome back. Let's get through these headlines today, your comments, and how you're feeling about how things are going in Greater Sudbury and abroad, and how you're feeling about things, and what your take is on stuff. So finally made a live stream. Michael, glad to be here. Glad that you're with us. I'm glad to be here too. Cheers for sure. Any comments that you have, make sure to just chime in. Denise, skies were mostly clear this morning. A little bit of white flush showing up in Espanola so far. So good. Oh yeah, that reminds me, I had a dream last night that, I just opened my window and it was this time of year, but it was snowing for some strange reason. Like the snow was blowing in through my window, and I thought that was rather strange. But as dreams go, I'm just like, well, I better just shut the window because it's snowing. But now, come to think of it, if that were to happen in July, and I'm sure it has happened before. Just hope that it doesn't happen. Shared a quote of what's going on, and we'll talk about this in other shows or whatever. Some of our deep dives go into how our federal government is, some of their plans and the idea that they have to go to net zero, and they're going that way, hell or high water. They're going to go try to make policies and change the economy so that they're basically abolishing any energy that we have now, and they're totally changing things. So one of the Western premiers, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, so it says Western premiers push back against Guilbeault. He's the Minister of the Environment, I believe, calls for phase out of unabated fossil fuels. So Premier Scott Moe says, if it wasn't clear before, it is now. The Trudeau government doesn't want to just reduce emissions in our energy sector. They want to completely shut down our energy sector. And so you could read more about that. So let's see here. In a statement released Saturday, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith criticized Guilbeault's comments around the net zero electricity grid by 2035 and the emissions cap on oil and gas, which she calls a de facto oil and gas production cut. Instead of seeking ways to sow investor uncertainty and reduce support for Canadian energy globally, the federal government should focus on partnering with Alberta and investing in our national energy sector to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, while simultaneously increasing energy production, jobs, and economic growth for Canadians. Again, right? So how fast the federal government are heading towards these policies. As somebody who's studying this currently in a Master's of Business program, I've never really, studied the, economics or whatever per se in university. So here's my first stab at it, and I'm learning all of the economic principles and all the theories and all that. And the more and more I'm learning about it, the more and more it seems like our federal government is just shoving aside anything that's been learned in economics over the past years and good principles and things. They're just throwing it out the window, and just they're kind of taking an ideological point of view and just making policies based on ideology rather than on economics or sound principles. And I would, if I dare say the word science, which becomes an interesting word these days. So many comments coming in here. Here's a long one from Denise. So sorry I won't be able to get that all up, but I'm sharing it on the screen, and those that are watching can be able to read that. Not a problem. Problem is the lack of money, food, water, and land. The problem is we have given control to these resources. We've given control of these resources to psychopaths. Truth fusion, nuclear plants. I want to remind everybody about the water it takes to run a nuclear plant, as well as the fact that nothing nuclear is safe for anyone on this planet. Interesting. Okay. My brother definitely is an an advocate for nuclear if we're going to be able to continue to power the grid and have the standard of living that we currently have, and you want to have a green net zero-y kind of thing going on. He believes nuclear is the way to go. But yeah, I'm totally open to hearing other sides as well. Okay. Yeah, good morning, Tracy. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a great Monday. The ideology comes from the top, and they're using gatekeepers and the people around us and forcing them to force it on us. Okay, Dave, thanks for being with us this morning. Hope you're having a good morning. This week will be another week of the hottest temperatures ever recorded on Earth. Climate change? Question mark. Poses a really great question there for sure. Definitely climate change. The grid, Skynet, the cloud, robotics, and it's not for us either. I think we're starting to realize that. Yeah, I have to, there's those two questions we ask each other, or ask of ourselves, of the people in high places making decisions for us. Is there incompetence, or are they doing things on purpose, right? So you just have to ask yourself either of those questions. And if they are doing it on purpose, as Dave would surmise, it's for our own good, because these people know about the climate and how to fight it and how to change it by taxing us. If they continue to reduce the carbon footprint down to zero, plant life will die. Yeah, for sure. And we will too. We are carbon, by the way. So I think the net zero thing is a wink, wink. To get rid of carbon. That means people are carbon. Fill in the blanks. Monique won't let me reply. Belinda, you're absolutely right. Oh, that's interesting. Hopefully everything is working on your end. Looks like reverse fusion power might revolutionize the nuclear industry in the next 10 years or so. Wow, that's true. You did comment on that before, Miles, and that got my interest. Definitely want to look into that. We're looking into different energy sources on our end these days. There's all kinds of ways you can make energy. And, even with a stream, if you're lucky enough to have a stream in your backyard, not everyone does. But if you have a flowing water, you're able to just put something, you can do, make a little bit of your own electricity, just hydro, by putting a little, a mill kind of thing in your water, and it turns, and, there's things you can do on your own. It's kind of fun to experiment as well. Thunderstorms for sure. There was a bit of a warning out there yesterday. I shared that. Like I said, there's sports happen. The Spartans played again, and they lost again, unfortunately. They're 0-5 on the season this year, and 0 wins, 5 losses. They have one more game apparently remaining, and if they win that, I was surprised to read this in the Sudbury Star. But if they win this next game against North Bay, they have a chance of getting into the playoffs. Who knew? One win, you can get in the playoffs. So let's go Spartans. Maybe they can turn things around their season. It looks pretty bleak at this point, 0-5, but they're playing North Bay and they have a chance. I want to come back to this one. Or are we just going to... Is this a day of deep dives right off the bat, just due to the order in which stories were shared on our Facebook page? I don't know. Michael, there has to be balance between fossil fuel and newer technologies like nuclear. Amen, brother. Amen. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think we're going way too fast with all these changes. You can't be messing with electricity and energy, and either you're doing it incompetently or you're doing it on purpose. We need to really... And it's great that we have these new technologies. It's wonderful, but they are kind of new and they're not tested, and you have to make sure they work before you make the leap of, you don't want to take a leap of faith in, I think it was, who was it that said it's not our will, but it's God's will? We are subject to making so many mistakes in the past. We don't want to make a mistake with our our energy, and or is it on purpose, right? So are we just doing it out of incompetence, or are we doing it on purpose? And I don't know. The comment was lost for some reason here, so I'm sorry about that. Going back to see who said that to give credit. So Denise, they'll never stop searching for better and better and better. Doesn't mean we have to follow. We have answers. Okay, so there's alternatives, like the example of hemp, right? And why was the hemp industry not embraced? Because of all of the great things that it brings, you know what I mean? It's environmentally friendly and all that stuff, right? Hemp is really good energy source. And why do they reject it? Exactly. There's so many questions we have about that. It doesn't seem like we're making sound decisions. Energy is free and fossil fuel is a hoax. Yeah, I had a quote from a guy I wanted to play on one of the shows. I'll go back and get that, about fossil fuels, the idea of where it got its name, why they call it fossil fuels. Is it really fossil fuel? Does it really come from ancient plants, dying off and then creating the oil? Every continent has its own oil. Exactly. There's an endless supply, basically, of oil. And this particular expert, I'll get the comment where he says they want to create scarcity, so that way that's economically good for them. If they feel it's going to run out, they can always charge more and more and more. Nolan and Junction Creeks run in concrete cages under downtown Sudbury. They should harness the power. Wow, that's an awesome suggestion, Stephen, for sure. There's so many things we could be doing to create our own power, but yeah, you got to ask yourself, why aren't we? Why isn't our society made that way? We put all our eggs in one basket, and we become vulnerable to one company. The utilities belong to one company, right? And so we're all like, if they go down, everyone goes down. I don't know if that's a sound model or not. Belinda, the face of tyranny is always mild at first, and now we are seeing their true agenda. Okay, and then that's the question I ask, right? Is it incompetence or is it on purpose? So it's got to be one or the other. And sometimes we make good decisions too. We can't always say everything is bad. Like, there has been some good decisions made from our elected officials and our experts in the past. We just want to keep them accountable. Remember, folks, 2 years to flatten the curve. Yeah, exactly. Good morning, Diane. Bon matin. Thanks for being with us. The forestry industry was behind the sabotage of hemp startups back in the 1940s. Oh, interesting, Miles. Exactly. Like, there's reasons why when the common person or the common citizen knows there's technology out there that would be better for everybody, but yet something is holding it back. It's like, you think we always think, wouldn't it be great to have an car engine that runs on water? Wow. Wouldn't that be like space age stuff? And then you think back to the first engine we know of that was for transportation, and that was the steam engine, which was water technology. Sure, it has to heat up pretty, to a high degree. And how can we get a car to do that and all that? But yeah, no, it's possible. It was steam. Steam is water. We had a water run engine before oil and gas. And give your head a shake. There is technology out there. So there are forces holding technology back. We know that. The reasons are a lot, mainly economic, I would think, that people have, the technology they're making money off now. So they want to stop the new technology from coming out. It's not a new concept. Oil is the blood of the earth. That's Monique. Like 2 more weeks. Yeah. Back in the day when we were told by experts that it was only going to be 2 weeks, just stay in your home. 2 weeks, that's all we need. These were experts speaking back then. But then we cut them slack and say, well, this is an unprecedented thing. We didn't really know much about it. And then it was 2 years going on 3 years, right? Later. And the economy took a huge and everybody's morale and people's health and everything. More people died from the way we handled things back 3 years ago and onward than died from the thing we were afraid of because of the way we handled it. Many people lost their jobs. Many people just lost their minds. It's interesting, right? So we don't always our top officials don't always make the right decisions in times of a crisis or a thought of crisis. Something we think of as a crisis wasn't even a crisis. You know what I mean? So if you treat it as a crisis, you do more damage with what you're trying to do to stop something. If it is indeed a crisis, well, that's good. Okay, well, you got to do things. But if we made a miscall that it wasn't indeed a crisis, and then we do crisis type things to combat the crisis that are worse than the crisis itself, it's interesting, right? It's like I tell my wife when we're driving, and she kind of zones out, right? And it's normal, and she doesn't like when I talk about her on the show. So maybe I'll just cut this short. Anyways, and it's okay. She's not paying attention, but a car will come out of nowhere or whatever, and she reacts because she's kind of in, she's just in, autopilot as a co-pilot, and she'll go, and then that causes me to react, and I say, you kind of can't do, you're going to cause something out of nothing from your reaction to something you thought was dangerous, but it wasn't really dangerous. But you're going to now cause danger by freaking me out by screaming when there wasn't anything really there. I was paying attention. I knew that car was there because I'm looking, 3 blocks ahead as I'm driving. So that's a small example of that. Sorry, I will not use any more examples of you, which you've asked me not to do. I'm really sorry about that. I couldn't help it. Yep, they wanted to take out the carbon too and bring in their spandex synthetic nylon crap. Oh, that's in a comment about the hemp, I'm sure, and holding that back. Mona, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Hope you're having a great Monday as well as along with you too, Vin. Hope you're having a great morning. Okay, so here, okay, interesting. Nuclear cars, that's what my brother was talking about. He thinks cars should actually have a nuclear engine. I don't know how all that works. He's a car guy and he's pretty into tech stuff, so I'd have to say, I'd have to go to him to explain that. First, steam engines only access 5% of the energy they produced. So you're saying they weren't efficient, and I'm agreeing with that because it was back in the 1800s. But I'm sure at least the technology was started to the idea of running on a water engine, correct or no? We could probably have technology now that could make it happen with 95% efficiency, I would think. They want to expand their petri dish and put us in 15-minute cities. Wouldn't doubt. I've read a lot about that, and it seems there's a good portion of people that would like to see something like that. Their biolabs have gone global, hybrids, all of it. Miles says the forestry companies in the States went to Hollywood, produced a Gilmore called Reefer Madness. Produced a film called Reefer Madness. It turned everyone against hemp and marijuana. Again, yeah, that wouldn't be the first time propaganda used, film, not Gilmore. That's what I thought you meant. You gotta like the autocorrect feature we have. Speaking of technology, it doesn't always work the way we intend, right? That's just a small example of it. How do we go from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to fighting for our individual rights as Canadians? Temptation, whether it's knowledge, food addiction, self-control, is so important today, for sure. More conspiracy theories. That's what is needed, for sure. That's Dave. I don't know which the conspiracy theory is that you're referring to, but okay, so let's just get on with the next stories, but Jerome hasn't chimed in yet, so I'll get to his comment. Kind of like how the little comments on the movie Sound of Freedom. We'll get to that a little bit later. Head in the Sand Society. Good morning, y'all. Good morning, Jerome. Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get to that. But this story, holy camole. This is not a conspiracy theory, but Dave and Steven are going to love this one. So this comes from the Sudbury Star. What are zombie fires? This is a new one. So this is not a conspiracy theory. So this is coming from the side of experts who monitor the boreal forests. And this is their theory of why there's so many forest fires going on. Like a friend of mine, Nick, on the show quite a bit, says, how the heck do we have so many forest fires when there's so much snow during the winter? And we've had forest fires in the spring pretty much, just early spring. A lot of forest fires going. Wouldn't all that, the snow from, the winter, feet and feet and feet of snow, when it melts, it takes a while to evaporate and whatever and become so dry that you're going to have so many fires, Well, I guess they had to come up with something to explain this, and they did. And this is great. So, speaking of people with conspiracy theories, this is coming from the other side, right? So this is going to be the pendulum is swinging a bit. And see if this makes sense. So their theory is that the reason why there's so many fires in the spring is that during the winter, there's actually fires that are smoldering underneath the snow from the season before. So let's say there's a fire and we put it out and whatever, and then there's still embers going on. Then it snows like 12 feet of snow. I don't know how many feet of snow you get during a winter. And underneath that snow, the fire is still there all winter long. Doesn't go away with like 40 below temperatures. And then the snow melts and the water goes down into the ground and still doesn't put out the embers. And they're still on fire underneath the ground. And then it erupts again in the spring because it was still going. That's why we have fires in early spring, even after we have record amounts of snow, which then melts, takes a while to melt, and you would think would, make it hard for a fire. But here's the latest, greatest. Zombie fires coming to a forest near you. What do you think of zombie fires? So that's not a conspiracy theory. That's the scientists saying that's the reason why we have so many fires. And Monique is saying back to the water running engine. Yeah, I've heard people that invent these inventions or whatever, like a water powered engine, they go missing, or their shop ends up blowing up, or self-combusting and burning down. What happened to Nikola Tesla's, Good morning, David. I hope you're making a good recovery. I hope are you still in HSN? I hope you're out. Definitely. Good morning. Let us know how you're doing. Zombie fires coming to a theater near you for sure. Yeah, some great ideas here too, Stephen. They use peat. I would think peat moss, peat as fuel, like others use as coal. There's all kinds of energy solutions, right? DEW, I just heard about that the other day. And I can't remember what the acronym is. Something energy. It's kind of like, I think it's the HARP program, something like that. Anyways, if you wanted to explain, Monique, yes. Trying to explain arson away. Well, that's the thing, right? So Dave says, don't recall too many forest fires in winter. For sure. Yeah. Well, they're saying the forest fires that happen in the summer and they're supposedly put out or whatever. And then winter comes, the coals, the ambers or whatever continue under the ground all winter long and then fire up again in the spring. And that's why we have so many fires early in the season, because you would think, wow, it takes a while for the forest to get dry after so much snow there. There still is a lot of snow. Like, even though they were saying the polar ice caps would have been gone like 20 years ago, they said, that 10 years ago they were already supposed to be gone. The experts that we still listen to today warning us about climate change and they're in the realm of climate alarmism now because their predictions did not come true, so many of them, but we're still, for some reason, calling them experts and listening to them, and mainstream media keeps quoting them, and we keep making policies based on those things. DARPA, yeah, for sure. I'm familiar with that as well. Michael says the depth of snow varies as you move linear directions, so the heat of a fire can survive and later grow. Yeah. And you know, I do think that is possible, but I would think it would be rare. You know what I mean? I don't think it's the reason for all of the fires that we have. Guessing the forest fire are always in the same area. Nope. Maybe they're trying to piggyback off The Walking Dead. Scientists don't make conspiracy theories, just scientific hyperbole. That's Miles. Oh, you're still in HSN and rehab, David. Well, here's to a quick recovery. Hope you're on your way and on the mend. And I hope the food's okay there as well. Direct energy weapon, that's what it is. Yes, DEW. Yeah, look into some of these things. They're not conspiracies. Speaking of Tesla, who invented the darn thing, and wanted it to affect peace in the world. He wanted each country to have a section of that technology in, the engineering of it, the write-up about it, and that way not one country could make it and dominate another country. So he invented the weapon and then wanted to have each country, or main powers of the world, have a little piece of that technology, so they'd have to work together if they ever wanted to accomplish anything. I did read the article, Stephen, but I'm not reading it here. It describes the carbon-rich, high-grade fuel peat as what is storing the fire, through the winter, especially in Alberta. Cool. They do explain it, for sure, and it could definitely be it. It could be the reason why there's so many fires in Alberta. But they're talking about the boreal forest mainly in the article, but yeah, they alluded to that as well. When you fight fires in a force for years, found a light on fire, bacteria can actually cause fires in large groups. Interesting. What happens when bacteria are eating large amounts of wood and leave a large amount of decaying burnable material? Again, there's lots of stuff going on in the forest, and I believe there's lots of reasons, but I guess just to always say it's climate change, to me, it's just oversimplifying it and not taking responsibility for forestry management. I know I have friends in forestry management says we could be doing a lot. And the roots burn too, yes. Read the article. It's areas of high peat content soil. It's amazing. The earth is fine. It's the head games they keep playing with us. Zombie fires are fires that overwinter because the fires are lighting huge fields of peat moss. Yet you left peat out of your description. He's got a point. You can find peat moss everywhere. Look up the stuff they spray. It's got to come down, right? For sure. And it's okay that we do not understand. Most people like it simple. That's true. Yeah, that's the whole. Give it to me. I don't want to understand. Just tell me. And that's the whole idea of our mainstream media, right? That most people are having an issue with. Sudbury crosses for change vandalized. I don't know if it's vandalized again. It came up in the on CTV Northern Ontario News that it was vandalized again. That is the area that has been designated to commemorate or to honor or to remind us of the people that have died from opioid overdoses. And so someone went in there, and there was a lady who was arrested she was found doing that. And so hopefully that problem has been solved. Whatever happened to the Sudbury Blueberry Festival? That's kind of dwindled. I remember that being one of the biggest festivals we had in Sudbury. And so there's basically a chair and another board member. They're looking for possible board members or an organization to take on the Blueberry Festival, resurrect it. I'm not sure why it's dwindled. It was so good and so strong. Started by former Mayor Peter Wong back in the day, like in 1987 or so. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can get involved with the Sudbury Blueberry Festival. Here's a picture of a young lady who is the police are looking for. And if you have any information, make sure to contact them right away. All of the information that we talk about on the show is on our Sudbury News Facebook page. And yes, like Stephen said, you want to go into it and read more about it, encourage you to do that. We're basically bringing light to the stories, discussing it, and you want to go deeper into it, read the story for sure. Whatever the government is selling, I'm not buying. I like the Megadeth song, Peace Sells, but who's buying? Back in the day. I think it's reversed now. I don't think they're really selling peace anymore. I think it's the opposite. Yeah, exactly. There are some things about this zombie fire. Yep, for sure. What I'm doing here, Stephen, is I'm facilitating a conversation based on the news, and you're basically demonstrating the idea of it in that you shared your the reading of the article, and everyone benefited from that, right? In this community conversation, which you are a part of, which I really appreciate you being here each and every day, keeping me on my toes, along with Dave. Like every other festival, if volunteers are used, people don't volunteer anymore, for sure. Wonder why that is. What is it about our society that don't have people I volunteer a lot, and I know a lot of my network volunteer a lot. So I guess it's a certain kind of person volunteers. I guess we're seeing that as our society erodes and we become more all about us. We're less about others. And volunteering is usually there to help others. Now, we don't realize we help ourselves when we volunteer. And so if you were really selfish, you would go out and volunteer because you would get the benefit from it. For sure. I think there's just something to look in about these zombie fires and whatever. It's an interesting concept. Is it the only reason we are having all of these this idea of overwintering? I ridiculed the article saying the idea of overwintering fires is really silly, and to me it still is. I think it's funny that we're looking at that to place the blame that we have all these fires. So if we knew about these overwintering and all these scientists that are so smart knew about it, then what are we doing about it to manage it? So what are we doing to manage it now that we know about it? There's a lot of mismanagement that goes on in our forests, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But then it's getting blamed on climate change. So you can also blame these overwintering on climate change. So that's fine to do that. So it's fine. It's a real thing. I know. You can even plant things over the winter, and under the ground, it's a warmer temperature than above ground. So if it is, minus 100 over the ground, it will be warmer under the ground. It is definitely, in theory, possible. Is it to blame for all of our forest fires? You know what I mean? Like what? Like, why don't they have stories on how scientists say we're mismanaging our forests? And that's a huge reason why. Or arsonists. How many of the forest fires are due to arson? So there you go. Sunshine Foundation grants a dream of a new bike for a Sudbury boy. That is so cool. And there's a video there from CTV, Northern Ontario News. He's Sudbury teen Ben Pear has a new bike after getting his dream fulfilled by the Sunshine Foundation of Canada. The 15-year-old who lives with spastic cerebral palsy, has been given an adaptable bike, and he should be able to grow into during his adult years. So the bike, he'll continue to be able to ride it. He's not going to grow out of it, which I think is so cool. Okay, and then also the city's reached a deal with its workers that work inside. I don't know how the city is, I guess it's just the way the union is. There's outside workers and inside workers. So the union was able to strike a deal for the inside workers, but not for the outside workers. So that's still going on as we speak. So many comments coming up here about I guess that really struck a nerve about the fires and the fact that I thought it was a silly sounding thing, zombie fires, and the fact that, hey, from McCarroll, Lynn, thanks for being with us. And, yep, for sure. I think some people out there would be happy just to say it's all climate change. We need to stay in our homes from now on and not turn on the lights or run the water because we're using up water. Can't use up electricity. If you run your air conditioner, that's heavy on the grid. We should be biking everywhere. You should eat bugs and basically, just kind of don't go outside. Don't breathe because you're gonna introduce carbon into the atmosphere. You're breathing in the oxygen. You're putting out carbon. So eventually, it's going to be. You should stop breathing. I mean, there are those that's where the road is headed for climate alarmism. And that's where a lot of the news seems to really, go down that way. The mainstream news. Where's the mainstream news about the arsonists that, are lighting a lot of the fires? Where's the mainstream news about we're in a cycle? We're in a climate cycle like the Earth has been in for billions of years. Where's the mainstream media stories on that? That's a fact. There are scientists out there saying it. Why isn't that the headline? Oh, main scientist of this particular organization with 50 million years of experience says we're just in a cycle and that most climate alarmists are just very much doing that. And they're influencing policies that are going to do more harm than good. Where's the mainstream media headlines about that? And why don't we see it? There are scientists out there saying that. They're not writing stories on it, though. Don't understand why. Speaking of that, we got a little bit of a deep dive into the film that was just released, Sound of Freedom. How the mainstream media handles it, maybe that'll give us a little bit of a insight into that. And we'll be back right after this.
The legacy media is once again in a fit of collective outrage. They are in full-on panic mode over the smashing box office hit movie, Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom tells the real-life story of Tim Ballard, a former U.S. Homeland Security agent who quits his job to rescue children around the world from child trafficking rings. Despite its low production and marketing budget, on July 4th, one of the biggest movie days of the year in the United States, it smashed competitors like the latest Disney Indiana Jones movie and was #1 on the charts. In Canada, the story is the same. It's selling out theaters, and theaters across the country have extended its run because of its success. So why is a movie about exposing child trafficking rings around the world and raising awareness about this scourge that is rarely talked about being trashed by almost every single legacy media outlet? And why does it appear as though legacy media journalists are desperately trying to stop you from seeing this film? You might have seen what the Washington Post and Rolling Stone have said about Sound of Freedom, but quite honestly, you have to hear what the CBC is telling Canadians about this film. Despite their outrageous takes, it appears as though these state-funded film critics have lost perspective on their jobs. Instead of telling us about how the film threads a narrative for 2.5 hours and how it captivates the audience, the film critics attack the audience and promoters of the film, not the film itself. Maybe that's because there's not much to criticize about it. But let's be honest, if there was ever a sign of approval for you to go see a film, it's when the CBC tells you to not go and see it. Drop a like in the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, stick around for the Ratio of the Week prize, and the common question for the episode is this. It's a simple one. Have you seen Sound of Freedom? And if not, What are you doing? Go check it out right away. All right, let's get into it. Last night, I went to the movie theater to watch Sound of Freedom, something I would usually never do because, frankly, every single new movie these days seems to be some remake of a 1980s hit movie, but the lead characters are replaced with diversity hires, and the story always happens to be some far-left progressive narrative. But this, I can guarantee you, is a spectacular film. Not only is the story extremely important, not only is the message a critical one, the film itself is a really well-made movie. That's why the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 100%. And also, that is why every single piece of criticism of this movie isn't about the movie itself, it's about the storyline, and it's about who is promoting the movie. For the past 2 weeks, as Sound of Freedom has been smashing the box office in the United States and in Canada, legacy media outlets like Rolling Stone, Washington Post, CNN, mostly in the United States, have been trashing this film. Left, right, and center, they have been trying to discourage anyone from seeing it. The main line of attack is that this movie is a QAnon-adjacent film. But as always, the CBC just had to outdo every other legacy media outlet across the Western world and provide their own analysis on this film and try to dissect why so many people want to see this over some Disney remake of Indiana Jones. Take a listen at what this CBC pop culture columnist has to say about Sound of Freedom and why it's so successful. I'm sure you just can't believe what they're going to tell you. Take a listen.
But this is the way it beat it. Like, this is where things get really, really wild. Because, like, as we said, none of us heard of this movie. And you would have only heard of this movie if you are a regular among church groups, or you regularly watch Fox News, or you follow right-wing personalities like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and the like, or you are a QAnon conspiracy theorist, or part of the so-called freedom movements. But make no mistake, I think the movie's success has a lot to do with it being a dog whistle for xenophobic, pro-Trump, pro-life types. I guess we can't say that the movie itself is made by QAnon types. I mean, the filmmakers deny that entirely. But certainly, Operation Underground Railroads, their political goals make it something that QAnon conspiracy theorists would rally behind. Just like racists like to rally behind Trump without him having to say anything overtly racist, right? And again, it's not just QAnon types rallying behind this movie. I was at a packed screening last night in Toronto. The movie's been selling out every night here in Toronto, and it's now opening wide in many more theaters. And, at the theater, I was polling the people in the theater about what brought them to this movie that most of us never heard of. And there was a group who said they were encouraged to see the movie on the recommendation of their American friends who heard about that through their church group. And then there were groups who attended because they heard about it on Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro's podcast or other types of right-wing influencers. And then there was people who attended it because they were encouraged to do so by their online freedom rally groups. Which ones I'm talking about, right? Like the Freedom Convoy type of people, right?
Unbelievable. So this pop culture critic from the CBC can't wrap his head around why Sound of Freedom is selling out in theaters across Toronto. He can't understand that a movie he has never heard about is smashing every other movie in the theaters. Oh, and because of that, it must be a dog whistle for xenophobic, pro-Trump, pro-life types. A movie that exposes child trafficking rings around the world. It can't possibly be because actually, audience members are begging for some genuine storytelling. They're begging for a movie that actually appeals to them. That's not some woke remake of an already twice recycled film from their childhood. Yesterday, I clipped those comments from this CBC pop culture critic and put them up on Twitter. Canadians weren't surprised. Because don't forget, the CBC is the exact same organization that routinely defends drag shows for kids, that even has gone so far as to attack True North for exposing drag shows for kids on publicly funded libraries. They also have no problem attacking parents who take issue with gender ideology being forced onto children in grades as young as 4. So is it that surprising that this is the same company now attacking a movie like Sound of Freedom? That pop culture critic found my tweet and proudly said that yes, he did say these comments. He was proud about saying this film is a dog whistle for xenophobic, pro-Trump, pro-life types. That the only people who would have known about this film are churchgoers, are Ben Shapiro listeners, and those evil, nasty Freedom Convoy types. That would be you and me. Well, he was so proud to defend his comments, except for the fact that Like anyone who's very proud of their comments, he turned off replies. He didn't want people to actually criticize his comments on Twitter. He just wanted to say that, yes, he is behind these comments. Well, sure enough, I responded back to Mr. Radhayan Simon Pillay, and I wrote this. Why are your replies turned off if you're so proud of your statements? Do you really think that the success of Sound of Freedom is because it's a dog whistle for xenophobic, pro-Trump, pro-life types? Or were you just repeating what the CBC told you to say? Well, sure enough, Mr. Radhayan Simon Pillay got ratioed for this absurd take. Quite right as well. The reason I bring up the question as to whether or not he was repeating what the CBC told him to say is because this is exactly what the legacy media have been doing about this film. Just take a listen at what this QAnon CNN expert had to say about the film a few days ago.
In terms of child trafficking, we know trafficking is real. We know it has real victims. No one is denying that. But these films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites, and only people like Tim Ballard and only people like Jim Caviezel, and by extension, only people like the ticket buyer can help bring these trafficking rings down. So there's a very participatory element. You're not just going to see a movie, you're just killing 2 hours on a hot day. You are helping bring down these pedophile rings and save children. Now, it's not true, but it's a very comforting and it's a very warm feeling to have.
Now, this is what that bastion of journalistic integrity, The Guardian, had to say about Sound of Freedom as well. Take a look at this headline. Sound of Freedom, the QAnon-adjacent thriller seducing America. Jim Caviezel stars as a hero trying to stop child traffickers in a paranoid new movie, turning into a surprise box office hit. Yes, it has to be described as a paranoid new movie because, of course, that couldn't possibly be happening. It must be those paranoid QAnon people that are just too concerned about a non-issue. The worst headline of all happens to be from the Rolling Stone. Go figure. Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. The QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. Despite Rolling Stone getting absolutely destroyed for that absurd take, again, not criticizing the film, but criticizing the attendees and criticizing the lead actor. Rolling Stone just couldn't help themselves. They followed up with an article yesterday saying this: why anti-trafficking experts are torching Sound of Freedom. The new movie offers a false perception of child trafficking that experts worry could further harm the real victims.
Yeah, so again, just you see the legacy media and how they, and I was listening to the CBC on the way back from work, the one that I heard him speaking to the host here, the local one, and again, it's very much wrong. First of all, you're a movie critic. You're not there to talk about political leanings of what they never mentioned one bit of what the movie was about. Yet, they go, the worst movies ever made in the world, they'll sit there and analyze them and talk about this, that, and the other, and the director and whatever. And again, you see how the country is divided. The Western world is getting to be divided by design. And someone made a comment, but you have to be leery about this film too. And I think you should be thinking that way. Like, what are some of the things? Is this the greatest film on earth? Are there some nefarious things behind that? And you should be thinking those things as well. I just wanted to point out, though, how media treats things and how they're dividing people. They're putting people in categories. And you have to be very, very cautious of this. And if you understand your history, mainly around the late 1930s and early 1940s in Europe, and you really read things to do with that, you will see the signs of what's happening in our day. And you should be very, very worried about that divisiveness and happening through the media and through our politicians. That is Sudbury News Talk for July the 17th, Monday. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, God willing. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU. Have a great one. Make sure to share. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.
This Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.